all and welcome to my channel. It's Kaz here. Crafty Kaz is the name of my channel. Please tag me when you use any of my patterns on social media, please. Crafty Kaz 33 on Instagram or Crafty Kaz, and I'm Kaz Harris on Facebook. Today we are making trailing ivy mittens, so stay tuned. For this project I'm going to be using some Signet Aran in a grey and a cream. We're going to start by casting on with waste yarn and doing about 5 to 6 rows to start our project off. So over and under, or back and forth, whichever phrase you prefer, all the way around the bed of your machine. And now we're going to do 5 or 6 rows just to start our project off. Snip off our waste yarn, and we're going to start now by doing the cuff first, and I'm going to be using a contrasting yarn to the main body of the mitten, and I'm using a cream. So for my wrist, 18 rows worked out about right. So we're going to put on the cream yarn now, 0 our clock. And my end digit keeps sticking, so that's why I had to click it more than once. So with our new yarn on, we're just going to go around and do 18 rows, and I'll see you back when we've finished. Just coming up to my last row now, coming up to the end of row 18. And there we are. So we'll snip off our cream yarn and change over to our main colour, which is, in my case, the grey. So we're going to change to our grey. And we're going to do 2 rows to start off our main body of our mitten. So just 2 rows. 1. Loosen up some yarn. And 2. And then we're going to start our trailing ivy pattern on our mitten. Okay, so we're going to take the yarn out of the yarn feeder, and we're going to start by knitting the first 2 needles, because our pattern is going to start from needle 3. So knit needles 1 and 2, and now we're going to do our trailing ivy. And if you know my trailing ivy pattern, you might be alright with that so far. So we're going to be wrap 2, knit 2 once, wrap 2, knit 2 twice, wrap 2, knit 2 3 times, wrap 2, knit 2 4 times, finish on a wrap 2, put your yarn in the yarn feeder, finish the row, back to needle 1, okay, back to needle 1, and 1 full row of ordinary plain knitting, back to needle 3. So we'll knit needle 1 and 2 this time, rather than take it out first. Both ways are exactly the same. And we're going to do the same thing again. Wrap 2, knit 2 once, wrap 2, knit 2 twice, wrap 2, knit 2 3 times, wrap 2, knit 2 4 times, and ending on a wrap 2. Put our yarn back in the yarn feeder, finish off the row in plain knitting, and 1 complete row again in plain knitting, back to the start and knit needles 1 and 2, and we just repeat that over and over and over for 28 rows in my case, which fits my hand perfectly. And that will take you up to row 48 in the pattern. So if you don't 0 your clock after you've done your cuff, then you'll be working to row 48. So we're going to repeat that once more, making sure now that when you're wrapping, okay, I will just go over that again for people who have not wrapped before. Do not pull it tight. See, when you pull that tight, the needles will move. You don't want that, okay? That will cause you problems in cranking, and it'll make your machine seize up, and it could even damage your machine. So you have to be careful wrapping, okay? Round the back, round the front, okay, underneath those hooks. And if you're not sure what your hooks look like, bend down and have a look so you can see those little teeth and the gaps, and you have to make sure that the yarn is underneath those teeth so it won't rise up when you pull it like that. Okay, so that's underneath and it's just touching, all right, no tension as such, just touching each needle. So we're going to wrap 2, knit 2 once, wrap 2, knit 2 twice, wrap 2, knit 2 3 times, wrap 2, knit 2 4 times, ending on a wrap 2, yarn in the yarn feeder, finish the row in your ordinary plain knitting, and 1 full row again, all the way around the bed, knitting needles 1 and 2 on the next row, and you're ready to start that 2-row pattern repeat over and over and over for 28 rows in total, which if you don't see your clock will take you up to row 48. So we'll carry on doing that now until we get to row 48 on our counter. Okay, and if you zeroed after your cuff, then you'll be getting to row 30 because you do 2 rows of plain and then 28 rows of pattern. Okay, so off we go again, and I'll see you at the end now. Okay, and then we'll finish off. I'm on row 46 now, just about to start my last 2 pattern rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, ending on a wrap 2, finish the row, and 1 another row, and that takes me to row 48. And now to finish off to 50 rows for the hand part of our mitten, just do 2 rows of plain. And once you've done your 2 rows of plain knitting, you'll be on row 50, if that size suits you. Here we are, back to the beginning. Now I've done row 50, we're going to snip off our yarn, and we're going to cast off as we normally do. And with our work off the machine and ready to go, stretchy stretchy, make that pattern look fabulous, just repeat the process now and make your other mitt. Once we've completed the 2 mitten pieces, and there they are looking lovely, we need to move on to our thumbs. And using your 22 pin knitting machine, cast on as normal and knit 15 rows. 15 rows is about perfect for my thumb. You may need to adjust for yours, and then cast off with waste yarn. The reason we cast off with waste yarn on this particular project is because it's always easier to remove waste yarn from the cast off edge than it is from the cast on edge. Before we start assembling, remember we have to tighten up our joins here. If you have done a colour joint, no need, of course, you can just do 50 rows for your mitten if you just prefer to do 1 colour. So tighten that up and snip off the waste yarn. There we go, and now we'll move on to assembly. To start the assembly process, we're going to need to seal off one end of our tube, and as you can see here I have a brown row there, and when I knitted this one I omitted the rip cord or the release row, if you want to call it that, which is just 1 single row after you've done your waste yarn, which allows you to easily, or more easily, remove the waste yarn at the end of the project. Okay, so with my tails on the left hand side there, and you can mark these if you want to so you don't lose them, because they can get a bit lost towards the end, or there, so you can put a stitch marker or something in there if you like. And I bring mine across, so I've got 1 stitch right at the far end, and a stitch either side, and I grab one and I pull it through like that. But you may have your own way of doing it. You may crochet it closed or some other way, but I just zigzag down the line like that, closing off the tube. And when I get to the end then, I just pull the tails through and seal it off, and then remove the waste yarn. So that's what we do now, just seal the tube off. And I'm just going to pull my tail through to seal off, pull it tight, and then I'm going to attempt to remove the waste yarn. I'm going to grab it from this side, which is a tip from Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. And we're going to pull our waste yarn ripcord like that all the way out. And Amanda, it works fantastic. Thank you so much for that tip. And we remove our waste yarn. How great is that? So that's our tube sealed up, and we'll move on to the next stage. Next, we need to gather in the one side of our work. So as you were making a beanie, exactly the same, we're going to draw that string all the way in like that. Okay, now we need to fold in half. Now I see some people doing this the inside out method, and I prefer to do it right side out to start off with, and then we'll turn it inside out. But that's my style. If you'd rather doing it all inside out, then that's fine, do it that way. And with our yarn then, we pop that onto a darning needle. And we're going to stitch down to about 10 stitches up from our join. Okay, now that's what works for me, but we need to find our line all the way up, and I'm going to grab my stitch markers in a minute, and I'm going to mark my line of stitches all the way up so it's not twisted. At the moment now you can see it's twisted, alright? That's not going to look very good at the end if we leave it like that. So let me go and grab my stitch markers. Right, I've got my stitch markers. So I'm happy with that line coming up there now on the cream, so I'm going to put a stitch marker joining the cream there with the cream stitch on the opposite side, and the same a little bit lower down to keep everything square and looking nice and neat and professional, and that'll be fine there. Now I'm going to carry on following that line all the way up, and at the moment it's rather twisted, so we're going to straighten that as we go up, following that line, keeping that line. And it is a bit wiggly on the eyeballs, I have to say, but we will do it. There we go. Now I'm going to count about 10 stitches up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's about there. Okay, and I'm going to put a stitch marker in there because that's where I want my thumb to be inserted, is in that gap. So I put a stitch marker in there. And let me make sure I got 10 on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Stitch marker in there. Hopefully that's right. And then follow that line all the way up as best you can, right up to the top. It's going to get a little bit more tricky as you get to the top. But wiggly, 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 and we'll get there. There you go. It's looking quite square now. And again, I'm going to pop another stitch marker in there. Following my line up. I will double check it before I start sewing it, because I'm not wearing my glasses, which is never a good thing when you need to wear glasses. So more or less I think my line is kind of straight. Okay, so using that tail now at the top there, and our tail on a darning needle, we are going to mattress stitch down to that mark there. Okay, we're going to leave that then as a gap for our thumb. Okay, so that's what we do next, mattress stitch all the way down. And the reason I like to do it right side out is I got control then over how the top of my mitten looks, because I think sometimes it can go a little bit squidgy if you can't keep your eyeballs on it. So just double checking my line now to make sure that I am nice and straight all the way up, and we're going to mattress stitch all the way down. I'm going to put a little holding stitch across the top there like that to start off, to pull that nice and tight. And then we do the mattress stitch down to that line there, leaving 10 stitches open. Okay. So we're going to leave that on there for now. Okay, and there's our join. It's not looking too bad at all, looking quite neat. And that's the start of our trailing ivy mitten. So we need to prepare the thumb now. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for a second and we're going to pop over and do the thumb. But you can prepare the thumbs first if you like. I'm just kind of, this is the way I work. So thumbs. To prepare the thumbs is identical to preparing the main body of the mitten. Okay, we are going to seal the end of the tube like we did with the end of the mitten base there, exactly the same. We are going to gather up the other end, exactly the same, like that. Okay, and we are going to fold it in half like that once that is sealed off and the waste yarn is removed, and we're going to mattress stitch up there. That is it. That's all you have to do for the thumb. Okay, so let's whiz through that now. And the same with the base there. I like to put my tails on the left hand side, move everything up to the right, so I end up with one stitch there and a stitch either side, and then I zigzag between them, sealing it off exactly as I did with the cream on the bottom of the main mitten. And you do that then with the other thumb as well, so you can prepare both thumbs now. Exactly like that, all the way along, pulling your string in at the end. Okay, so I'll do that now and pop back then and show you how we stitch up the thumb. So I closed off my edge there. I'm going to remove my waste yarn, which is always easier from the cast off edge. It's a delight to remove, to be honest. There we go. And we've pulled our, or cinched our end together there. So just fold your thumb in half now, and exactly the same, make sure your lines are matching up there so it's nice and neat, and it's easier because it's a smaller piece. And we're going to mattress stitch all the way down the length of our thumb, closing it off all the way down. 2 bars I take all the way down, and then repeat the same process then for the other thumb, and then we can add it into our main body of our mitten. And these are quite quick to do, and actually even doing the body of the mitten doesn't take much longer than knitting it all in plain stitch. Pull it tight, even it out, job done. I'll put a little stitch across the bottom there like that to secure it and hide my tails. And our mitt is ready for the thumb. So what we're going to do now is to take these out just for a second, because you're going to turn it inside out now. If you want to work from inside out all the way down, by all means do that. Okay, so we are going to turn our mitt inside out. Pull our stitch there like that so it's nice and neat, and we're going to pop our thumb in. Our thumb needs to go on the inside, and we're going to position our thumb, there we go, so it wraps around the bottom there. Okay, so you may need to come down a little bit more, but that gives you a good idea of where you need to put your thumb. And I'm going to follow my line down, which is to there, and I'm going to pop a stitch marker in there like that. Actually a little bit higher up, just to hold it in place. Alright, and that's how I stitch mine up, and we're going to continue then with the tail that we left on the body. And don't pull too tight, because we do need a little bit of stretch there in order to get our thumbies in, okay? So I'm going to pop my stitch marker back there. If I can find my line. There we go. I pop my stitch marker back in there. And you can see now that leaving that 10 stitch gap, okay, the thumb fits in there quite nicely, allowing you to stretch it a little bit as you sew it around. Now the choice is yours. I have tried both ways of sewing this together. I have done it slip stitch, and I have also done mattress stitch, and to be honest I can't really tell the difference between both when you turn it inside out. So what I'm going to do is slip stitch, so which means I'm just going to go across the top there like that and grab 2 bars from there like that, and I'm just going to slip stitch around 2 bars from the top of the thumb as close to the edge as you can, and 2 bars from there. And I'm not going to pull too tightly, just tight enough to bring it in, but not too tightly, like that, as close to the top of the thumb as you can, and just gently pull it in like that all the way around, securing our thumb. Coming across here, I'm going to put a little stitch to join the bottom of the grey area together, just above the cuff, before continuing with the slip stitch around the thumb and the body. Now I can take this stitch marker out. I'm going to continue now, slip stitching all the way around, watching we're not too tight with our tension. We want to keep the room there to get our thumbs in. And there's not much to do now with these, to be honest. It's just we're going to seal off down that seam there using some cream yarn, and just finish the other mitten, and then our set of mittens is done. And it adds a lovely design feature to the mittens, I think. Plain ones are lovely as well, of course, but and you can make them plain if you don't want to do the trailing ivy, then by all means do them in plain stitching. And think about your colour combinations. I love using complementary colours. If you don't know what they are, have a little look up, and you'll see what complementary colours are. And we're going to finish there now. There we go. And we'll double check our stitching when we turn this inside out. We can always pop it around the other way and make sure that we've caught everything. Not the end of the world if we've missed a little area, because sometimes some yarns are more difficult to see than others. So we're just going to hide my tail inside there now. Lovely. Snip that off. I'm going to load my needle up now with some matching cream. If I'd left a longer tail, I could have used that. So that's an option as well. You can use a longer tail. Alright, so I'll temporarily remove that. Turn my mitten the right side out, and you can see, isn't that looking lovely? Now, I suppose you could leave that open. I suppose if you wanted that kind of design. But if you did double up on that, of course, then you'd have a mitt that would fold up like that with a deeper cuff, and that's a really nice option as well. But you can see now that our thumb is nicely stitched in there. It's looking really nice. So all we need to do now is to finish mattress stitching up there like that. So let's finish off our mitten by finishing off the cuff there. Start our stitching off there. We're going to leave a bit of a tail, and we're going to mattress stitch all the way down, exactly the same, following our line, keeping it nice and neat. I take 2 bars at a time, but if you like taking 1 bar at a time, that's absolutely fine. So nip down there now with our mattress stitch, and just repeat now with the other mitten, and you'll have a lovely pair of trailing ivy mittens. And I'm going to tie my tails together like that, and then I'm going to hide my tails inside. And I'll do the same with that. I'll put a little fastening stitch and hide my tail inside with that as well. Hide our tail, snip it off, job done. And all we need to do now is to make the other one to match. And there they are, the pair, finished. Aren't they pretty? I absolutely love them. And just to show you, there's also a pair in red. Red, grey, aren't they gorgeous? I hope you love this project. If you do, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and hit that bell icon so you can keep up with any future content that I upload. So thank you very much, and I hope you like this project. Can I politely request that when you make any of my project that you tag me on social media, please? So I'd love to see your work. So it's Crafty Kaz 33 on Instagram and Crafty Kaz as well, and I'm Kaz Harris on Facebook. Okay, and if you can direct people to my channel, that is absolutely fantastic, rather than spilling the beans on how I make these things on the groups on Facebook and such. Keeping the traffic coming to my little channel here helps me create more content for you peeps to enjoy. So thank you, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye from Trailing Ivy Mittens. Yay! Bye for now.